Houdini, the science behind the magic. Self-deception isn't just for wartime targets, it's the foundation of entertainment magic. What if Houdini's greatest talent wasn't escaping restraints, but exploiting the same psychological blind spots that helped fool Hitler? His background as a locksmith's son provided technical skills, but his true genius was understanding a universal truth: the most convincing illusions happen in the mind of the audience. Entertainment, magic, and military deception share a fundamental principle. The most effective illusions occur when targets convince themselves of what they see. Houdini mastered this art on stage, while intelligence agencies applied it to warfare. When Houdini hung upside down in a water torture cell, suspended by his ankles with his hands cuffed, audiences experienced a carefully orchestrated psychological operation. The drama intensified as assistants stood by with axes, ready to break the glass if something went wrong. Heart rates quickened as seconds ticked by. Then, just as anxiety peaked, Houdini would emerge triumphant, soaking wet but alive. The audience erupted in amazement, their minds having done much of the work for him. Houdini manipulated perception itself. We often imagine him as a physical anomaly, capable of impossible contortions. Precisely the belief he cultivated. In reality, he pioneered psychological techniques that later became standard practices in both entertainment and espionage. He understood deception happens most effectively when targets convince themselves of the impossible. His deception mastery began in childhood. As a locksmith's son, Harry absorbed technical knowledge, forming the foundation of his famous escapes. This early exposure gave him intimate understanding of locking mechanisms and how they could be defeated. Technical knowledge alone doesn't create wonder. Houdini's application of this knowledge through human psychology transformed mechanical skills into seemingly miraculous feats. Like a sculptor chiseling away at disbelief, Houdini carefully removed logical explanations until only the impossible remained in spectators' minds. His physical abilities supported these illusions. His training developed controlled breathing techniques for extended underwater periods. He could dislocate his shoulders at will, a painful skill enabling him to slip out of restraints. The water torture cell escape required genuine breath control and physical prowess, but appeared far more impossible than it was. Houdini amplified the perceived difficulty through psychological manipulation. He understood that anticipation intensifies experience. Before performances, he built tension by emphasizing dangers. During jail cell escapes, he demanded strip searches and thorough examinations, eliminating obvious explanations in witnesses' minds. The more thoroughly observers believed they had eliminated all possible escape methods, the more miraculous his freedom appeared. What audiences didn't see was his meticulous preparation. He often secretly examined restraining equipment beforehand. He sometimes tampered with locks or created hidden mechanisms. These weren't shortcuts undermining his skill. They were essential components of creating complete illusions. Technical manipulation combined with genuine physical abilities and psychological misdirection created experiences transcending mere trickery. His approach to misdirection was sophisticated. Rather than simply distracting audiences, Houdini created false narratives that spectators embraced as explanations. When observing an escape, audiences constructed theories about his methods. Houdini anticipated these theories and planted evidence, leading observers down incorrect reasoning paths. By the escape's completion, witnesses had often convinced themselves of explanations more complex than Houdini's actual methods. This strategic deception parallels intelligence operations. Like Operation Mincemeat, British intelligence didn't directly tell German commanders the Allies would attack Greece instead of Sicily. They created circumstances where targets reached that conclusion independently. The psychology is identical. Deception works best when targets believe they've discovered truth through their own reasoning. In 1906, Houdini published On Deception, systematically exposing various tricksters' methods, from overcoat thieves to counterfeit doctors and spirit mediums. He particularly targeted miracle mongers, circus performers, whose sensational acts endangered themselves while deceiving the public. This publication demonstrated Houdini's comprehensive understanding of deception as both practitioner and analyst. Houdini balanced genuine skill with psychological manipulation. He actually escaped from genuine restraints using physical prowess, technical knowledge, and psychological misdirection. This multi-layered approach created deception that was partially real, making it more convincing. Intelligence operations use this hiding a tree in a forest technique, embedding truth within a larger deceptive framework to enhance credibility. The most powerful aspect of Houdini's performances happened in audience members' minds. He created scenarios where spectators actively participated in their own deception by filling understanding gaps with assumptions. When watching him escape from a locked underwater trunk, audience members mentally constructed explanations for what they couldn't see, often imagining solutions far more complex than his actual methods. This cognitive process, where deception targets become active participants in creating illusions that fool them, makes intelligence deceptions effective. Houdini transformed deception from something hidden into something celebrated. Unlike con artists concealing methods to exploit victims, he openly advertised himself as an illusionist. Audiences knew they witnessed deception, yet remained amazed when their expectations were manipulated. This transparency about deception's presence, while maintaining secrecy about specific methods, created an ethical framework distinguishing entertainment magic from malicious fraud. The parallel between Houdini's techniques and intelligence operations demonstrates that fundamental deception principles transcend specific applications. Whether in entertainment, espionage, or confidence schemes, effective deception operates on consistent psychological principles. The difference lies not in the techniques themselves but in their purpose and ethical justification. The psychology of deception. Why we fall for it. What if I told you that intelligence and education, the very qualities we assume protect us from being deceived, can sometimes make us more vulnerable to sophisticated cons? This counterintuitive reality challenges our most basic assumptions about deception. The data paints a surprising picture. Highly educated individuals are sometimes more likely to fall victim to complex scams, particularly elaborate investment frauds like Ponzi schemes. These sophisticated operations often target financial professionals and educated investors who believe their expertise will protect them, only to find themselves caught in the same psychological traps that ensnare everyone else. This vulnerability stems from a dangerous confidence gap. The more we believe we're immune to deception, the less we guard against it. Think about it. When was the last time you questioned information that perfectly aligned with your existing beliefs? That blind spot is exactly what skilled manipulators exploit. While education provides knowledge, it doesn't automatically install protection against the fundamental cognitive biases that make all humans susceptible to manipulation. Confirmation bias stands as perhaps the most powerful psychological vulnerability we face. We naturally embrace information supporting what we already believe, while dismissing contradictory evidence. Someone who already believes a political candidate is corrupt will readily accept stories supporting that view while ignoring evidence to the contrary. This isn't stupidity, it's how our brains process information efficiently. But this efficiency creates predictable blind spots that deceivers target precisely. Similarly, authority bias makes us attribute greater accuracy to information from perceived experts. Con artists exploit this by adopting the trappings of authority, wearing a doctor's coat, or claiming prestigious credentials. A fraudster posing as a medical professional can sell fake cures by capitalizing on our trust in healthcare providers, just as financial scammers present themselves as investment gurus. These cognitive shortcuts function much like autopilot in a car. Incredibly convenient for navigating familiar routes without conscious effort, but potentially dangerous when the road ahead contains unexpected hazards. Just as a driver might miss a new detour sign while on autopilot, our minds can overlook warning signals when our cognitive shortcuts are engaged. Consider Sarah, who recently received an urgent email appearing to be from her bank, warning about suspicious activity. The professional-looking email included her bank's logo and formatting. Despite being tech-savvy, she clicked the link and entered her credentials before realizing it was a sophisticated phishing attempt. Her authority bias, trusting her bank, and the fear triggered by the message overrode her usual caution. Master deceivers. Across all domains, con artists, magicians, and intelligence operatives use remarkably similar techniques. Despite their different objectives, they understand that human perception isn't a perfect recording of reality, but an active construction process where the mind fills gaps with assumptions. By controlling what information we receive and its context, manipulators lead us to draw false conclusions that seem entirely logical. Magicians exploit this gap-filling tendency in the classic cup and ball routine. While you focus on one hand, your mind creates assumptions about the other. Assumptions the magician deliberately engineers. Intelligence agencies use parallel techniques in counterintelligence operations, presenting enemy agents with partial information, knowing they'll fill gaps with assumptions, leading to false conclusions. Emotional manipulation bypasses rational thinking entirely. Fear, greed, and altruism can override critical thinking processes in ways pure intelligence can't protect against. Phishing scams trigger fear to prompt immediate action. Investment frauds leverage greed to suspend disbelief. Charity scams exploit our desire to help, making critical evaluation feel callous. These emotional triggers work on everyone regardless of education. Emotions are universal experiences that temporarily overwhelm rational faculties. Social dynamics further complicate our defenses. As social creatures, we look to others for guidance in uncertain situations. Con artists exploit this through social proof, creating the illusion of consensus. When others appear to validate a situation, we're more likely to accept it ourselves. Fake reviews, staged testimonials, and artificial social media engagement all capitalize on this vulnerability. Just as the street con 3-card Monte uses shills who appear to win easily, the master insight that skilled deceivers understand is that people believe conclusions they feel they've reached independently, rather than convince targets directly. Manipulators create environments where marks convince themselves, a process called self-persuasion. This approach bypasses our defenses against external influence while engaging our tendency to reinforce existing beliefs. In successful confidence schemes, marks rarely feel manipulated. They believe they've discovered a unique opportunity through independent judgment. The con artist merely arranges the scenario, providing subtle guidance, while the target's mind does the rest. Intelligence operations work similarly, presenting carefully crafted partial truths that lead targets to draw desired false conclusions themselves. This environmental manipulation works because it's virtually undetectable. When someone directly tries to convince us of something, our mental defenses activate. But when we believe we've independently discovered something, those defenses remain dormant. The most effective deceptions don't trigger suspicion because they feel like our own discoveries. The psychological mechanisms that make us vulnerable aren't defects. They're features of normal cognition that serve us well in most situations. They help us process information efficiently and benefit from others' expertise. The problem emerges when these adaptive mechanisms encounter environments specifically engineered to exploit them. Understanding these vulnerabilities provides insight into the fundamental workings of human perception and decision-making. The same psychological principles that make us vulnerable also explain how we form beliefs, make decisions, and relate to authority in everyday life. They reveal that deception isn't about lying convincingly. It's about understanding and manipulating the invisible mechanics of human cognition. The